we want to talk about how you use your time. And productivity feels like this, oh, it's this fluffy extra piece that we can get to later. First things first, we got to get our offers down, and we're working on all these things, and then our head's spinning because we have so many things going on. So it feels like this fluffy extra when really it's the sole piece that's going to move you forward. It's going to let you actually get the things done that you need to get done. So we'll get into how gardening and plants tie into this in a second, just a fun example. But all right, so a little bit about you. Whether you are a full-time entrepreneur or if you are side hustling, I tend to focus on people who are in a full-time job and try to build their business on the side, but these can apply to anyone. You maybe feel like you're working all of the time. You come home, you immediately start working on your business, you start doing all these other things, you work until midnight, and then you get up at 5 in the morning, you start this whole process again. Your weekends are filled with work top to bottom, and you're burnt out, or you're starting to feel like you're ready to get burnt out. You're just spinning plates. You feel like I'm posting in the moment. I just throw together a post, put it up there. I throw together an email marketing list. I put it up there. It's just keeping things barely afloat. And for that reason, maybe things aren't progressing like you hoped. You're just keeping stuff alive. You are not actually letting it grow. And you end up wasting time. So maybe you sit down after your day job, or if this is your full-time thing, then you sit down in the morning and you get lost in this massive to-do list. You have all these million things going on, and you spend an hour just like, scrolling through Netflix. You spend an hour scrolling through, and you don't actually end up watching anything because you're just trying to pick something the whole time. Same with your to-do list. You're scrolling through your to-do list. You're looking at all your Post-it notes everywhere. You don't know actually you never take action because you don't know what to do. Everything just feels like this big pile of stuff that you have to get done. And maybe you've often felt like giving up, or I just need to walk away from this. I'm going to take this massive break, or I'm going to quit because I just can't. This is just too much. And so something that people always say is like, I don't have enough time. And you're like, all right, as a productivity coach, she's going to tell me, but you do have enough time. No, I'm going to tell you that you probably don't. You don't have enough time. And there's a reason for that. And it doesn't matter whether you are a full-time entrepreneur or a side hustler. You have the time that you have. Like Braylon mentioned, I'm an analytics project manager, started as an analyst, I'm a data geek is my point. It's just data. Whatever you have is what you have. And we're going to talk about how to allocate that piece appropriately. All right, so that comes down to two main things. There's choices and there's optimization. We're going to focus on the choices piece today, but I feel like it's important to also mention the optimization point. So it's all about how you actively choose to spend your time. Every decision is a trade-off. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whatever you're doing in this moment, that means you're not doing something else. And you have to make sure that you are actively choosing that thing, and that is going to move you forward rather than just doing the next thing that comes up on your list because you think you should. So why are we doing this one activity in this moment now? You are in full control of what you are doing. You're not in control of what happens to you. Yeah, there's outside factors. We get sick. Injuries happen. I had this debilitating back injury that threw me out for a whole week, couldn't move out of my bed, had my sister come help me shower. But the point is that things happen to you, and it's what you do with that scenario. It's what you do with the remaining time that you have that makes the difference. The second piece of that that we get to later, not later, but that comes after the choices. Again, we're focusing on the choices today, is the optimization piece. Time is our most valuable asset, but it's also our most limited resource. You can't buy more time. You can't buy more. You can't get more in any way, shape, or form. So it's just about taking what you have and again, making the most of it. All right. So this is how it ties into gardening. So let's say, just picture a scenario where you have a set of plants on your windowsill. They're each in their own little pot. You have, let's say, 10 plants. And every morning you wake up and you get a glass of water. It's a very specific amount of water that you get every morning, and you have to feed all of those 10 plants with this glass of water. Now you can make some choices. You could either, let's say scenario one, you're going to give each plant a little bit of water and divvy it up equally. Each plant will be nourished. Each plant will have a little bit, enough to keep it alive, but maybe not enough to grow, or certainly not enough to grow very quickly. The other option, you could put that glass of water into one or a couple plants. Those plants then will flourish, they'll grow because they have all the resources that they need, but then you're neglecting some of these other plants over here that are going to wilt and or awful die. So there's choices that you have to make with this glass of water. And it comes down to that allocation. Why are you giving some plants water and other plants no water. And if you're choosing to give them equal amounts and just a little bit of each, you just have to be okay with that decision. So this is the same idea as the time that you have. So I have 3 jobs and I'm building a business. So I have a certain amount of water that's going to be smaller than someone who has quit their day job and is full-time in their business. They have a much larger glass of water that they can then be dedicating to their business, to all of these things that are going to be moving them towards their goals. So from there, all right, maybe I need to make some choices about my plants. Am I going to keep all of my plants because I only have this much water? If I try to divvy it up amongst all those plants, something's going to die. Something's going to wilt. Versus, if again, someone is full time, they have a larger glass of water. Maybe they can have more plants on their windowsill. All right. So the issue that a lot of people run into is well, my time isn't the same as someone else's time. Like, I feel like the argument comes up of like, Beyonce's 24 hours are totally different than my 24 hours. Because, Beyonce can have people do things for her and all these things, people who are wealthy and all that. It's just, back it up. It doesn't matter what anyone else's glass looks like. Doesn't matter what anyone else's water allocation looks like. You have your water. That's all you got to worry about. If that means growing slower than some other people, that's okay. And you just have to focus on making those choices accordingly. Okay. So the first step, how do we go about actually figuring out what to do with our plants? So got to take an inventory, write down and we'll get into an activity at the end of this after I go through the explanations of how we're going to walk through step by step. So the first thing, write everything down. Did anyone watch the Marie Kondo Netflix series of going through your closets and organizing everything? So if you hadn't watched it, you're pulling everything out of those closets. You're going to go steps. So let's say we're taking on the bedroom first. You're going to take all of your clothes out of your closet, dump them on your bed. It's going to look like this massive pile of stuff, but only then can you see, oh, look, I happen to have 2 of the same sweater, that sort of thing. So we're going to write down every single thing you do. And this will be, I just have some examples here to kind of jog your memory, anything from social media, writing blog posts, making reels, captions, coaching calls, emails, website development, recording YouTube videos, anything along those lines. Everything. That sounds like an exaggeration, but everything you do in a day is going to have to go in here. All right. Next up is organizing. So there's this matrix called the Eisenhower matrix, and it's 2 different axes. There's the importance and the urgency. So we are going to, are you able to see my cursor when I do this? I know you can in Teams, but I'm not sure about Zoom. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to start in this top right quadrant here, important and urgent. So this is how you then start dividing, and I'll tell you what to do with each quadrant. So once you have your inventory, you're then going to divide them into these 4 quadrants. You're going to put each activity, each line item that you've taken from that inventory list and put them in this grid here. So the first category up here, important, urgent, that's the blue flower that's a little bit wilted. Blue and orange are just to differentiate, like blue is important, orange is not important, sort of thing. And then the wilted side is the urgent. Not wilted, doing healthy or healthy, doing well sort of plants. That's the not urgent side. So if something is urgent and important, it's going to go up here. And we'll talk about how to determine if it's important to you. If it's important, but not necessarily urgent, it's over here. And it's not urgent because it's not dying. The flower's doing all right. And then if it's not urgent, not important, flower's doing all right, it's orange. And then over here, urgent, but not important. So it has a deadline, it's coming up soon, but it's not necessarily the biggest thing that you need to be focusing on right now. And I'll come back to that. I'll have this grid up later. All right, so how do you know if it's important? We kind of think everything is important, but it may or may not be important in this moment. So there's a couple questions to ask yourself you can go through. Do you actually enjoy doing it? Are you good at doing it? A perfect example of this is Connor and his YouTube. Like if you are not good at editing video, like how Braylon mentioned, that's going to take him 6 hours versus Connor's 3. If that's something that I would put in the not important, in the sense of not important for me to be doing it myself, not important for you to be dedicating time that you could be dedicating to something else. So we'll talk about again what to do with those later. So walking through those questions again, is this task actually moving me toward my short-term goals? Is this task aligned with my long-term vision? And is it a hell yes? If there's something on your plate, you're like, I'm going to pick on Clubhouse just because there's That's not something that I participate in at this moment. I did before when I was working from home, but so I'm going to pick on Clubhouse. Clubhouse for me is not something that would be in this moment. Maybe it will be in the future, but right now it's not something that is aligned with my long-term goals. So that's something that I have put in the not important, not urgent pile. So it's not a deadline. It's not something that is helpful to me in this moment. So going through these, trying to figure out what actually is going to help move the needle forward. I'm sure there are a lot of things on your plate, a lot of things that you're walking yourself through the process that's not actually making a huge difference. So there was something that someone I talked to who's looking to join the program that I have, he was talking about, whenever we got on the call, he said, I just spent the last 3 hours working on my website. I'm like, well, I looked at your website last week when we first started chatting, and it was sufficient. It was good. I got all the information I needed. It had your story. It had how you can help. It had ways to contact you. It was sufficient, but you just spent 3 hours making it incrementally better. For what purpose? Eventually, I'm not saying don't ever work on your website. I'm saying, what can you be doing right now that could better improve you, get you forward progress closer to your goals? Because his problem was that, like, I have no income. I need sales. I need things to happen. I'm like, well, do you have an offer? And he's like, one. I'm like, well, do you have people? And he's like, no. So, okay, well, your website's fine. It gets the information across. Let's work on something else that would actually that would solve that problem for you. All right, so let's break down what the different quadrants, what you would do with each of them. So that first one, important and urgent. It's time-based. It's aligned with your values. It's aligned with your long-term goals, or your short-term goals, your long-term vision. But this can also be crisis mode. This is something, if it's urgent, it has to be done now. And that's often taking away from other work that you could be doing. So an example of this could be a client is calling and they have this massive problem that just came up. This is like crisis mode work. That's not that this is a bad way to work. It's something that can't be planned necessarily. All right, important, but not urgent. This is something that you're going to do later. So this is the ideal working state. You would hopefully have these planned out ahead of time. You know that on Tuesday, I'm going to batch my content. On Wednesday, I'm going to do this other thing. Maybe that's email marketing or administrative sort of tasks. You're scheduling these things out for the future. It's a very intentional, I know what I'm going to do and when. It just doesn't have to be done right now because it's not on a deadline. It's not on a specific time frame. All right, the next section is not important, but it is urgent. So these are the things, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of important, is like, it feels weird to say it's not important for you to do yourself. So this is busy work or something that doesn't necessarily require your specific skills, or something that you can hand off to someone else because they could do it better and you could save time for yourself. So something you can automate, something you could streamline. Again, just take this off your plate because it's not important for you to be spending your time on this thing. And the final one is not important and not urgent. If it's not in line with your goals and your vision, and there's no deadline coming up, there's no reason for you to be doing this, why is it even on your plate? And that's where these tough decisions come in, because there's so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis that we're just doing because, I don't know, it came across our plate and we said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do this. You agreed to certain responsibilities, or you took on some tasks that you didn't put a whole lot of thought necessarily behind, or you've been doing this thing forever, so you're just going to keep doing it. We have to go into our list, go back to that inventory and actually look at things line by line and say, why does this belong here? Let's go back and justify, give a reason, not why should I get rid of this? Why does this belong here? Why does this deserve space in my schedule? Why does this deserve water from my very limited glass that I get every day? So that's where we have to be more conscious with our thoughts, with our dedication of that time. So that was the other thing that Karina was talking about was, is this aligned with the values and who you are? We tend to just start collecting things and we get all these things on our plate and it's not intentional. I think that's something that people struggle with the most. And it's just take a moment, step back. Yes, it's going to take time to step back and do all of this, work, all of this processing of our lists. But from there, then you'll be able to streamline, know exactly what you want to do and how to get there. Okay. So does anyone have questions on the, Braylon, can I do questions in between before we move on to activity?
Yes.
Okay.
Kayla didn't say no, so yes.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Does anyone have any questions first?
Can I just say also that I love, I don't know, it's more of a statement, but I love the choices versus what was it, optimization? Is that what it was? I love the depiction of making, like, every day we make unconscious choices. We just kind of let life, which brings us back right to the transformation stuff we were talking about with Elevated, like choices versus decisions. It reminded me of that. And so, yes, I just was thinking about this the other day. I was making unconscious choices all day, and I looked and was like, where the hell did my day go? And not in a good way either, right? So I love that you highlighted that.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. Like you said, the letting life happen to you versus actively choosing, this is how I'm going to spend my time. And yeah, things come up. You know, people get sick, accidents happen, you know, like there's a crash on the parkway and all of a sudden, you know, your day's thrown off by 2 hours because you just sat there in a line of cars for 2 hours. So things happen, but it's just, I keep coming back to it's data. Like Raylan, you always say about, you know, you can't let your circumstances and all these things affect how you go about choosing things throughout your day. It's just, it sounds so cliche, but it is what it is. Like, you just have to take what you have and allocate accordingly. It's not fair because I have less time. No, it's just, this is the time you have. Let's be very conscious about how we use it. And then once you have those choices made, then we can go in and start optimizing. Let's automate. Let's get things a little more streamlined. But streamlining doesn't matter if you are working on the wrong things. If you're going in the wrong direction, you've made that choice on the map and you're going away from that area, that the destination that you want. It doesn't matter how fast you get there, it's still going to the wrong direction. So yeah, it's exactly all about choices.
And Anna, I love how you divided this in important, urgent, important or urgent, because my focus when I was working, and it's so true, productivity and organization are key. But one thing I always ask, because there's many advices from different entrepreneurs, is it important to always have those 3 top intentions, goals that we want to do every day? Or do you think it's important to analyze your to-do list and play around with if it's important, urgent, not urgent, because maybe those 3 things can change from urgency to not urgency?
Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. Like if there's a deadline coming up, so and all of a sudden it's the day before the deadline, and if that thing isn't complete that you needed to submit, then all of a sudden that's now urgent. That's something that you have to drop everything else. So I think a good example of this is, you know, back in school, finals are coming up, and you know, you're like, all right, I have a week until finals. I can study later. I'm planning on studying on Thursday. My finals on Friday. All of a sudden it's Thursday, and you're like, you know, it's not sure if I want to do this yet. I'm going to go clean my room. I'm going to go bake cookies. I'm going to do everything else but study. So you're just putting this off. But in that moment, it wasn't urgent before. Now studying for finals is an urgent thing. So yeah, so things 100% change all the time. So it's just this feels really tedious putting it down on paper in this moment, but things will start the more you do it, the more it will become in your mind, all right, you know, just what's the word, like a cataloging in your mind in the morning, like, all right, here's the things that I got to do today. Here's the things that are due coming up soon. Here's something that's due today. So it's just an automatic reorganization of things on this grid that you'll get better at over time. Awesome. All right, any more questions before we go on to the activity? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So we are going to go exactly through that. So the first thing, write down your inventory. So you could do this on paper. I'm an analyst, so I prefer a Google spreadsheet sort of thing. If you just plop them into a single column, each one gets its own cell, and then you can have columns instead of having to write different categories. But you could also do this on paper if you wanted to just write urgent and important. Let's see. Oh yeah, I still have all the categories on here. So if you wanted to do the do later, do first. Oh no, I have both as stitched. 1 second to let me. I'll fix that while we are working through the activity. So I'll fix these labels here. So go through, write down your inventory, every single thing. Again, we're Marie Kondoing our to-do list. Everything goes on this list. Even if you think it's minute, it's like, oh, it takes me 2 minutes, doesn't matter, it goes on the list. And then from there, we're going to organize it into the 4 buckets. And then we can walk through, talk about why you put certain things where, what you had trouble with, and how the whole thing went. Okay, so I will fix this and I'm gonna have to pause for a second, get out of the presentation mode, and I'll fix this one, the label here, and we'll be good to go. So let me stop sharing for a moment. Oh, Raylan, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yep, I was on mute. All right, is everyone clear? Thank you. Is everyone clear on what's being asked right now of us? Can I get some head nods if it makes sense? If not, so we're basically taking all the things we have to do for our business and for ourselves too, right? Like working out should go on this, things like that, right, Anna? Okay, and then we'll break it down. So there's also one question I'm going to throw in right now. Kayla brought up, which I thought was a good question, huh? I'm not gonna, anyway, which was like the idea of saying no, like when you don't have the time, how to say no. I don't know if you mentioned that at all during the presentation, but yeah, I think that's the question. Just how do you say no?
How do you say no, like to someone else or to just an activity, or both?
To to somebody else, so that way you're not overcommitting to too many things.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that it feels tricky, because you're like, oh, if I say no, I'm failing because I should be on top of this. I should be able to take on anything and everything, right? When really it's, again, being conscious. So if you just phrase it in a way where you're like, thank you for the opportunity, or thank you for thinking of me, thank you for asking. But at this time, I have, let's see, what would be the best way to phrase it? So I have my schedule is currently fully allocated, or I don't have the resources at this moment to dedicate to this. And then you can always offer a solution on the back end of that. So like, if you know someone else that could do it, oh, but this person could help you out. Or, oh, but I could send you this freebie of mine, like that thing that it's on your link in bio anyways. I could send you this thing that could help you with this anyways. So it's nice to offer a solution if you can. Sometimes you can't, but just honestly being upfront with them, instead of oh, I'm really busy right now. Or like even making up something is totally worse. Just be fully honest and like, nope, my schedule is what it is. I am fully booked at the moment. Maybe in the future, if that's something that you would be interested in offering. I don't know if that's answering the question, but just being fully honest with people.
Yeah, and I think I like your version of it better, because Anna, you're nicer than I am. And there's been times where I've just been like, I just don't want to do that. Like I'm not interested in that at all. And so I think your version's better.
Well, but I mean, if you're not at all interested, that's something that you shouldn't be like, oh, but maybe in the future, just like,
I've done that too, though, because it's funny. It depends on the people. Like, if we have some type of relationship, I will say something like, yeah, just maybe hit me up in the future, but I don't want to do it at all. So yeah, I think, Anna, this is why you're good at what you do. All right, let's take 10 minutes and let's go through the activity. Anybody have any questions on how to do the activity? Or are we good? Can I see some thumbs up, please? Are we good? We good?
I see a hand.
Wait, I have a question. Are we adding because I have a toddler running around, do I add like toddler stuff to this list also, or just business? I missed the answer before.
So I think the nice thing about this is it could be at any scale. So I was thinking in terms of again, this is our cup of water that you have to dedicate to your business things. So I personally was taking the business stuff, but you could take it at any scope, if that's the right word. You could take it at any viewpoint level. You could take it at the highest level of, my items.
You want to just start with business then?
Yeah, let's start with business.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I got off on a left-hand turn.
All right. So if we're good, I'll put on our favorite lo-fi hip hop, and let's do the activity. I know Vicky just popped back in. So Vicky, just so you know, we're just writing all of the activities we have to do in our business. And then next, you're going to be organizing it and do later, do first, ditch, delegate. That was a horrible way of explaining it, but it's fine. You can read. All right. Echo, play lo-fi hip hop. 10 minutes. We're back at whatever 43 mark, the 43.
A very quick question.
Yes. All right, I had to find the mute.
Yeah, no problem. I'm struggling to put one of my tasks into the urgent but not important bracket.
Okay.
So how would you differentiate between something that's, so for example, I'm struggling to define the difference between important but not urgent and urgent but not important, if that makes sense. Okay. So for example, I'm trying to post to YouTube pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. And for me, that comes under the important but not urgent bracket, because although I define that as important, if I miss a day off, or I miss that today's video off, it's not going to be hugely detrimental. It just helps me with my consistency. So I'm not sure if that will go in important but not urgent, or urgent but not important.
So I think if you said like it's not a massive detriment if you miss one day, right? So this is one of those that it could kind of teeter between the two. So it becomes urgent. If you miss a day, the next day then becomes urgent. So this is where there's like things are constantly shifting. It's not something doesn't go in a bucket and forever live in that bucket. So things could change from day to day. So maybe it's just an important but not urgent on a day to day. So you are scheduling it, you are creating it, knowing that it's going to go out at some point. Maybe you have backlog is not the right word, but you have this list of unpublished videos that can go out. You're working on them slowly, but then you can do it later. But if all of a sudden you miss one or you miss two, now it becomes more urgent because you're like, I'm losing that consistency. So I need to get back on this. It becomes important and urgent at the same time because you're like, I need, this, something's missing. I got to get back on this. Does that help answer it? Like things don't forever belong in a bucket.
I get that. That makes sense. So in an ideal world, assuming I'm remaining consistent, it would stay in important but not urgent. But if I miss that consistency, it shifts to urgent but not important.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Think about consequences. Urgency usually is associated with the consequences of what's going to happen if I don't do this right now.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Could it also be related to deadlines? So if you've created a deadline, that can also help you understand the urgency.
Yes. Yep. And as the closer you get to that deadline, the more and more urgent it becomes if you haven't already completed that thing. Does that make sense? Awesome.
It does. You did fantastic.
We have like 40 seconds if you want to start early. It's up to you. Miss Boss Lady.
This is Tiffany. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for all of this information. It is truly helping me. I might not be saying much in the background, but because I'm multitasking in a meeting, but a sorority meeting, but I just want to say thank you guys so much. It's really helping me and pushing me in that direction. So thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you, Tiffany.
All right. So if we want, next up, we have, I guess you can call it whatever you want to call it, but let's go through our lists. And Anna, I'll pass it back to you and let's see if we can help some people. Ooh, sorry. Caleb brought up oatmeal cream pies. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, jealous. That sounds so good. All right, who wants to volunteer? If not, I'm going to pick someone. So you can either raise your hands or you can come off your mic. All right, Jesse, I see the first hand. Okay, so first question, how did it go? And then from there, you can talk about like, did you have any troubles with bucketing things? Will be the next piece.
Yeah, these are always really difficult assignments for me, mostly because I will just start writing lists and I don't take the time to really process what I'm writing. Does that make sense? So I'm just making a list. I'm like, I'm doing the assignment, right? So I can check it off my assignment list here. But I don't have a ton of problem. I've done a little bit of this exercise before, but some of it's like my daughter plays volleyball. And so I went like grand scale on things because everything in my personal life impacts the business. And then I have 2 businesses, 3 technically. I have this one and the one I work at, and a bunch of random stuff. So, for me, it's prioritizing the personal stuff right now. So exercise, kids stuff, so volleyball and track. Right now, the biggest thing for me is creating a brand. And I don't want to jump and start working on anything else until I've clarified my brand, because I don't want to get it out of order. I don't need customers right away. I already have some that are trickling in, but because I don't need the money, and because I'm not, where I want to be from a branding standpoint, that is my number 1 priority. So branding, consuming, like reading, getting more ideas in that. And then one of the things through this exercise, and I've been thinking about it anyways, but this helps solidify it, it's reducing my social media time. It's taking away from too many other things. It's a distraction. And I'm a little ADHD. And so if I don't take what you're doing right now and focus in, I'm getting too sporadic. Probably not detailed enough, but it's a start.
No, yeah, then that's exactly it. And like you were saying, those are intentional choices that you've made. If you were like, I'm just going to focus on the branding, but you don't have enough to pay the bills right now, well, then we might need to make some changes. But those are intentional choices that you've done the back end work of, this is why I'm doing this right now. And I'm okay with this choice because all those things that you were just saying. So detail has nothing to do with it at the moment. Like, you know exactly what you need to be doing, what you want to be doing right now, and why you are doing that. And you know why it's okay, or you know that it's okay because you've said all these things, why you're not focusing on clients, why you're not focusing on these other monetization pieces, because you said you've already had some clients, you're working on some more personal stuff right now. That's exactly it. That's the whole point. Why are you doing what you're doing? And being okay with those choices. So yeah, that's exactly it. Did you have any questions? Anything that surprised you?
No. In fact, like I said, the exercise is perfect. From a priority standpoint, just personally, I'm working on trying to automate some behaviors. So identifying my morning rituals and my evening rituals. So there's this whole concept around executive function and saving energy. I'm going off on a tangent. No, I love the exercise though. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. I'm so glad. And Karina?
Anna, the exercise was wonderful. As I want to say, since I was a kid, I always was kind of a procrastinator. It was very hard for me to really get organized. It was something since I was a kid. I was very creative, but I never knew where to start. So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, this system that you're talking about, I didn't even know how was it called, but I know I had to implement it. And what I have learned with this exercise is that, for example, priorities for me that need to be urgent and how is it called? Urgent importance is, for example, for me, exercise is something that goes with my business. I need to feel good to focus on my business. I need to have this morning routine, very, very important, because if not, I don't function. And for example, there's 3 things that I do always that are connecting with my followers and on potential leads, right? That's something I always do. Although it's tiring, although sometimes I feel that I spend too much time on social media, but that's the way I get my leads. So I have to focus on that. And something else that I put is creating content. For me, it's important to have not every day, but choosing 2 to 3 days that I'm going to focus on creating content. So I don't feel like you were saying that it's always you feel overwhelmed because I haven't created this reel. I got to create it. And that interrupts your day. And something that I liked about is that, which I realized was last year, but right now it came back to me, is that before I was uploading every Tuesday YouTube content. I know how to edit. I know how to exit. I'm fast at it, but it was feeling too overwhelming for me, because it was consuming my energy, and came a moment that I didn't want to do YouTube anymore. And it's when you say that sometimes the priorities change, and that's so true. It came a moment that I needed to take a break for 1 month. I didn't do anything because I wasn't feeling inspired. And I believe as entrepreneurs and as aspiring entrepreneurs, this can happen, is that you feel that you need to put in urgent everything, so then you don't diversify your time, And that's how what happens. And this is a wonderful exercise. And like you said about the example of the website, I'm horrible with websites. I do my best, but I know that it's not my forte, because as entrepreneurs, we cannot be good at everything. But what you're doing right here is great. It's delegate what you know that you're not that good at, or that maybe you are good, but you don't want to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a wonderful exercise. And yeah, my question was this Connor was saying, how can you say urgent but not important? But as you said, it changes, right?
Yes.
Priorities change.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's a day to day, it's a month to month. Like you were saying, you needed to take a break from this one thing because you were just feeling uninspired with it. And maybe like, why were you uninspired? Was it because things were urgent every day? So you had to like hurry up and put all this anxious energy of this is coming up soon, crisis mode, crisis mode, crisis mode. And then all of a sudden, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you feel the need to take a whole month off, versus if you have it in the important but not urgent, and you're scheduling things out in a calm manner, that you're like, all right, I'm going to work on this on Thursday at 9 a.m., work on it and move on. And then you can go on for longer. Like that burnout doesn't happen because you're not constantly in crisis mode, not constantly in a reactive mode. This is a proactive rather than reactive. So things will start feeling more natural once you get these systems in place, once it's no longer just panic, throw things out there. Again, that crisis mode takes up so much mental and like emotional energy that then it goes away. Like every day you have, again, that you have a limited amount of water, but you also have a limited amount of deciding power. Like you just, by the end of the day, just like how they put candy at the end of the, what's the word? Grocery aisles. They put candy there because you've made all these big decisions while grocery shopping. And all of a sudden you're like out of deciding power, out of willpower. So you're like, yeah, fine, I'm going to grab the Reese's cups, So it's the same thing. Once you've used up all of this energy, all this anxious energy, all these deciding things, trying to be in crisis mode, then you start, like your choices start declining, or your decision power starts declining and all this stuff. So you having things planned out in advance, more calm, more organized way, you just perform better because you have that saved every day. You know what's happening. It's a plan. It's an automatic scheduled out, and things just exponentially increase from there.
So
Right, you're no
one of
living
the
in
things
hustle mode.
that I think we can include in this as well, and maybe
Mhm.
this is like the first step is organize the tasks, right? The next step that no one wants to talk about is the money.
Mhm.
How much money is that task bringing in? So there's something I brought up to Connor the other day, and he was like, I'll never, because I said, at some point when we scale this thing, you're going to have, you won't be actually editing video anymore at some point. Now that could be in like 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But at some point, we're going to give away all of Connor's tasks to people that work for Connor. So that way we can increase the amount of clients we work with. And at some point, I don't know when that is, but at some point, Connor won't be editing videos anymore, including his own. And he was like, I'll never give that up.
So yeah, it's going to be a dark day because it's a genuine hobby of mine.
So it doesn't mean that you can't do it for fun or do whatever, but we have to look at it from the context of at some point, you not only have to be efficient with your time, but what we're efficient with also has to increase the business.
Mhm.
Right? There's some tasks that you guys do, and this is where I get in trouble on Instagram a lot and whatever, because I believe in who, not how. Again, if you never read the book, Dan Sullivan, why am I drawing a blank? Ben Hardy, okay? Who, not how. At some point, you got to find the right person to do the task for you so you can focus your time on the things that make you money. And the things that increase, again, the profitability of business. That's something else that you can layer on top. And if this is a good idea, if not, you can shoot it down. But again, if you do this thing where you go, all right, I have the do it first list. All right, how much does that do it list first make me money? Oh, it makes me $0. Is it really a do it first list? Or is that just the thing you like? Right, Anna? Or no, I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's a combination of that being able to scale and knowing the things that you are the best at. So right now, like Connor, you are the best at editing videos. Over time, you're going to start being the best at managing a company that that edits videos. So that is going to change. Your specific skill set is going to start increasing. So there's this example, there's this theory of constraints. It's like a project management idea of where are things getting stuck in a process. So like in a factory, if there's A, B, C, D, and E stations, if station C can produce the least amount of things per hour, then C is what we need to improve. So like with this idea, I'm going off on a tangent, but I promise I have a point. So there, let's say we're in a car factory. So there's this thing called blue light that they talk about in project management. If you're a welder and you have like the blue light, because I know nothing about welding, but apparently there's a blue light when you're welding. If the welder is also doing these other tasks, like the welder is going to pick up the equipment and bring it to his station. They do the welding and then they do all these other things. And then they pick it up and physically walk it over to the next station. They're spending very little time actually welding stuff. Their very specific skill set is welding. So why are they doing all this other stuff when some kid can be doing that? You know, hire a local kid who's, you know, summer job sort of a thing. That kid can be picking up and bringing the stuff to the welder station. The welder is spending all of his time just welding. When he's done with that one, there's already stuff at the station that the kid brought over. And then when he's done with that, the kid takes it and moves it over and it's already there. So what is your blue light? What are you the best at? Spend all of your time doing that. Get rid of the other stuff, hire a local kid for a summer job is a weird example, but yeah, find your blue light.
Was there anyone that was surprised at what you realized that you need to ditch or delegate?
Can I say something, Raylan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so kind of like what everybody else has been talking about, one thing for me has been, and I know I've had to do it, but it's just writing everything else out kind of amplified it, but just me doing all the content that you see on my page, I actually create all of that. I do all the like captions, obviously, but I do all like the graphics, all of that. And one thing that I've noticed, especially like carousels and all of that, that's taking up a lot of time, right? And in the time that I'm doing that, I could definitely be prospecting clients. I could be recording more video content, which is what's really winning right now on all platforms. I could even be putting more work and focus into my podcast. So just doing this exercise showed me that what I really need to do is just kind of come up with this, you know, continue to come up with my monthly plan or whatever for my content strategy, write out what I want, and then give it to someone else to create the graphics for me. So I don't have to worry about that because I'm spending a lot of time just going ahead and creating these graphics.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that takes a massive amount of time. Like Raylan said, you said at the very beginning of this, we aren't good at everything. Like we have our specific thing, and just like the blue light example, yours should be the content, not the delivery method of that content. So if I can't do graphic stuff to save my life, my sister put the slides together for me because things I don't know, I would have left it as a plain blank white background, black text as is. And my sister's a graphic person. So she's like, oh, I'll help you out. Here you go. So yeah, don't spend time doing something that's not moving you forward.
One more thing too with that, it's like, and it's not always, and the things that we like to do and the things that we're good at and the things that we love to do aren't necessarily the things that we need to be doing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's finding that it's like Venn diagram is not quite the right word because then there's going to be multiple pieces. Venn diagram is more just the two circles. But yeah, what are you good at? What do you like? What is going to move things forward? You have to find that what's in that overlap piece of all of those circles. Okay. Raylan, how much time do we have? Does we have time for anyone else? Jesse, your hand is still up. Oh, 10 minutes. Okay, we have lots of time. Jesse, your hand is still up. Do you still have any questions? Oh, no. Okay. No hand. All right. Who wants to go next?
You know, I asked this question a little bit earlier, which was like, again, were we surprised about what we had to ditch or to delegate? And, you know, I think for the content creators, it's going to be that. And at some point, it was funny. I realized for myself, now granted, there's a sneaky way that I'm going to do this. So that way, but like at some point, I can't spend so much time prospecting. So 90%, that's a huge exaggeration. 70% of my time I spend actually talking about what I do, right? Whether it's on Clubhouse, whether it's in the DMs or whatever, right? I'm prospecting a lot of majority of my time, as it should be. 70-80% of my time needs to be there. But also I have the reverse problem as everybody else here. All of my time is not spent making content. I actually spend probably an hour a week probably less now, but like an hour, let's say an hour a week making content. And that's for everything, YouTube, it's for everything. But I spent all my time prospecting. The thing that I realized, because I was just getting on Connor about this, is like, what am I going to do to make sure that time on the prospecting is not coming from me anymore? Now, the way I went around it was if you notice, after this elevated, like these events, we're going to charge for it. So that it's its own memberships. They can do it for $300 a month or $3,200 for the year, so they save a little bit of money. So I'm saying this out loud to you all so you can kind of think, kind of see where my head goes. I don't want to spend all my time individually prospecting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have people come to us, and if they pay for the event, you can tell they are actually way more motivated to actually see some results. So the time, I don't have to commit to the time to convince them otherwise, right? So then we drive traffic. I'm going to drive ads to that, right? So then in not probably April, the funnel will be ready for that. So then now I'm driving ads. So now I actually just have to put on a really good event with you all, and I don't have to prospect anymore. But I am still, because I'm in my element. Does that make sense? So that's my cheat code. It's like, I think of, okay, what do I have to give up? What am I spending a lot of time doing? But how can I still get the same result? Because when we talk about things that are going to bring us money, we can't afford, sometimes we can't really afford to delegate it. So we have to figure out a way to delegate it, but still have the same results. And now, granted, we could run this in April when I start running ads to it. We could run it in April and it doesn't perform like we think. So I'll tweak it. Like maybe they have to interview with me first. Maybe there is already going to be an application thing. But then again, that's all to shorten the time it takes from someone to go, I have a whole bunch of problems in my business that I need help with, or my vision's so big, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I want to be around other people to realize that problem and then take action on that problem. We have to shorten that time as well. So anyway, just want to bring that up too. Sometimes the stuff that we have to delegate is also something we love, but also if we delegate it right, it'll make us way more money than we ever could.
I think one of the things that you bring up, Raylene, it's important to process. Sorry, we talk business and I can jump in, just talk business. One of the things you just talked about, though, is not necessarily delegate as much as it's automate. How much can we automate our actions? And when we talk about personal production and how we can produce more, this is such an important concept if we spend time processing, right? So one of the things, and not to dive too far into this, Anna, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but just understanding even triggers, like I said, you have morning routines and evening routines. And, once I start an action, it's going to trigger a response. And so it's about reducing the amount of energy that you use, because it's not just time, you're trying to save energy. So if I can reduce the energy spent making a decision, right? And I just automate my behaviors. So it just goes. It's really simple. It's really easy. From the business perspective, what you're saying, Raylene, is really just a different concept of how I'm going to bring the business to me. I think it's genius. I think it is very, very smart. And there's probably things like this throughout all of our days that we can, incorporate, right? It's going to be really simple. So I really appreciate the share there. And like I said, we could go into more depth as far as scaling and delegation to automation. But the other question I was going to ask you, Anna, is because I've been working on this too. How, once you make these tasks, you talk about doing it daily. What do you do to keep it visible? Because out of sight, out of mind. So when it's time to make a decision, are you writing it down? Do you post it on your fridge? How do you keep that visible so that you keep your decision matrix, at top of mind?
Yeah. So I think everyone has their own personal, some people are like paper planners, some people are online, some people like notes apps, but the inventory is like your master list. But if you're not having it, if you don't have it organized in a great way, every morning you're going to get up and stare at this 100-item long list of things. And you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Going back to like that Netflix example, like there's 1,000, well, it's probably way more than that. There's probably 1 million things on Netflix and you're just like scrolling. versus like having a system puts the recommended for you at the top of Netflix, or the like continue watching at the top of Netflix. So I personally, I like using like, I just found ClickUp in the last couple months or so, and I was switching that from, I've been using a different one, but like having a system like an online project management platform will help you then organize things into buckets. And things like, I'm going to keep using ClickUp as an example. There are tags or categories that you can assign to it. So then you can say deadlines, or you can categorize things by projects. You can also categorize them by like the amount of time it will take. You can say like under 15 minutes. So that way, you know, like if you have a pocket of time, like, you know, sort by things that take under 15 minutes. And then you can, with deadlines, then it will automatically pull things up. Hey, coming up today, you have this. Coming up this week, you have this. So it's just, I guess the answer depends on you and how you like to work. If you like things in a planner, that's going to be a little bit different because you have to like physically hand write stuff out. And all of a sudden you have this massive list and you've crossed out 10 things, but you still have 30 more. So I personally like the online stuff because it's quickly movable. What's the word? Editable. That feels like not a real word. It's quickly editable, and you can just move things around instead of like erasing, putting things up here, having to rewrite all the time. But the whole point is just, you need this massive list, but the massive list is not enough, because then you have to keep scrolling. Scrolling is not the right word. Scrolling your eyes through this list. You keep glancing down this list, and you need something to tell you these are the things that are coming up. So that's more on like the optimization side of, what are the scheduled things of those lists? Go through, pull out, this is coming up on March 1st. This is coming up on March 15th. And then you can have those triggers, for lack of a better word, of this is coming up on this date. I don't know if is that answering the question of just finding a system that you can bucket and categorize and put dates on the things that are coming up.
Here, actually, I have a really good question. How do you know when you've had a productive day? What does that mean?
So I think it depends on what if you don't think about it in the morning, it's like hard to kind of know at the end of the day. You're like, well, I did stuff, but like, was it actually helpful? So that's where, if you have this conscious list of, today I need to get done these things. And I know we've talked about, not like needing to do things, like I'm choosing to do these things. But if you have this list of, here are my top 3 things for today, and focusing on those things first, you're like, okay, yeah, I could also be doing the laundry. I could also be doing this. There are some other things on this list, but it's, again, those needle movers. Not that like the laundry doesn't need done, but those needle movers. So did you get something done toward that progress? Did you move forward in some way rather than just staying still? You're not just spinning plates, you're actually moving forward.
And Anna, don't you feel that sometimes we have like that productivity looks different every day?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Every day, every season, like, you come and go. Christmas time sort of thing, everyone kind of shuts down. You see like Instagram sort of goes away and no one's on for a while. It comes in seasons, every day changes. Yeah, so it's just, again, that being conscious about it. Today I'm going to do these things. If today is a rest day, by all means, like today is a rest day and you're not going to do anything toward your business. But it's choosing to have a rest day and not just, oh, well, I couldn't get myself sorted in the morning, so I just kind of watch TV all day by accident, sort of a thing. So 100% things change. And that's why it's nice to have this sort of conscious way of organizing. So that way, what today is going to look like and why you made it so.
So true.
So here's something that I discovered a while ago about productivity. And if you just base it upon this, I think this is the answer we're looking for in terms of what is a productive day. Did you do what you said you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So if you decided today's a rest day and you rested, then guess what? That's a productive day.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, I'm going to do these 5 things and you stick to it and you do it, and the only thing now you're measuring is that the only thing that you're measuring now is, again, did you stick to your word? Were you impeccable with your word? Make sense?
Exactly.
I think we have, how much time do you have left?
We're done.
Okay, we're done. All right, Anna. Amazing job, Anna. And I love that she was getting on people. People were taking too much time chit chat, and she's like,
Sorry, everyone.
I saw that.
Get with the program.